Hi, guys. Welcome back to Faith Unfiltered Life Podcast. My name is JoJo.
I'm Karen.
And we're going to talk about unlikely women with unshakable faith.
You know, if you've ever had a bad label about yourself or you don't think you're in God's plan, this episode is definitely for you because we're going to be talking about the 5 ladies in the lineage of Jesus.
Yes. So this all kind of started because we're kind of prepping you for our upcoming Mother's Day episode, which we're very excited. And we wanted to just go through the women in Jesus's lineage. And there's 5 women. There's Tamar, Rahab, Bathsheba, Ruth, and Mary. And we studied them obviously from the Bible, but there is also a series by an author called Francis Rivers who breaks them up each into books. Each one has their own book. And it just put a perspective on each of the stories that I don't think either one of us have ever, let me tell you what. I started reading Tamar's story and I texted Karen and I was like, Karen, what in God's green earth I didn't know anything about Tamar. I barely knew anything about Bathsheba, which I feel like with her, I texted Karen and I was like, I don't know what to think about this. It just stirred up some things in me. So we want to just get into the stories with you. I think something very important in the Bible, women aren't necessarily listed all the time. Their names aren't listed. The genealogy always broke down the father, the sons, the great-grandsons, the uncles, the brothers, but it very rarely mentions a woman. And when it does, I feel like you and I have to pay attention, especially as women. It's just their stories are so important to me that even now with this perspective, the author did a very good job of tying in the Bible, but also putting in a perspective from the main character's point of view, using things like the culture and the time and the customs from those areas and just kind of packaging it very beautifully, to the point where I was like, oh my God, it was like a biblical Bridgerton, if you will, of sorts. It was so interesting. Karen described it well. She said this is like The Chosen, but
for the women,
for these women.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really cool. If you get the chance to look this book up, I highly recommend it. But let's break down Tamar and just kind of what stood out to you from her story.
Yeah, Tamar, she was part of a non-Israelite family. She was a Canaanite. And back then, they would, like you said at Bridgerton, they would betroth their firstborn, their daughters, off. And that's how the families made money, basically. The other family spent a lot of money to gain the lady. So Tamar is one of those, and she was sold off, so to speak, or wed to a gentleman named who was a terrible man. He wound up dying. She was then sold off to his brother. He wound up dying all within a year, which was crazy to me. And even though I had read it in the Bible, this just kind of brought a lot of context to it, which was very helpful. And then she just really got down and said, I am going to allow the offspring to come from your family, because once they were betrothed into the family, they had to leave their family. So she had to make a family to where she became wed.
Yeah.
She wasn't allowed to go back to the family as a norm.
Yeah.
It was like no, you're now there. That is now your family. So
right.
She left everything. So her story and journey was just wrenching.
It was.
Because she wound up sleeping with and being the line to Jesus with the father who selected her for the son.
Right.
Judah.
Yeah.
So that was, and her tenacity and her grit to make sure she fulfilled her role in that day and age went beyond what everybody was saying to her and around her.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
What stood out to me the most from her was she was raised a completely and totally different way, had no idea any of Israel's customs or who the God was. She'd heard of him, but she didn't know who he was. And the one thing that I kept hearing her ask was, who is this?
Mm-hmm.
Who is this God? And she would ask Judah over and over and over again. She know of him. She wanted to experience him. She'd heard, but she had not seen.
Yeah.
And it was just this curiosity in her. And it was beautiful to just see faith, without calling it that, just build in her.
And just her hunger Like,
Yes.
that I think is super important. To be hungry to know more about the Lord will take you a long way because you're just constantly knocking on the door and say, "Who are you?
Right.
Who am I? Who are you? Why am I here?"
Right.
And so that, yeah, that is a good point of hers.
And
Hers was the tenacity for
it was
me.
something that didn't come easy to her, right? It
Mm-mm.
wasn't like she was having this beautiful life and just faith with something that just kind of fell on her lap. She was getting physically abused by her husband.
Yep.
She was getting physically abused by her mother-in-law,
Yep.
verbally abused by her mother-in-law.
Yep.
She was not wanted anywhere she went, literally anywhere she went. She was having to work her way for her food to live in a house that was hers. Like this was her family. Um, and just her reputation was being ruined. People were looking down on her. Nobody wanted her around. Yet she didn't let that, not once did she retaliate, which drove me insane.
While you were reading it?
Drove me insane. Not once did she open her mouth to speak poorly of anyone. Not once did she complain. Not once did she like snap back at someone. She started to pray to a God she didn't even know.
Yeah. She was that convinced that he was real,
And I was
but
like,
she didn't know him.
girl, what? It was just, it was such a humbling experience for me because as someone who does know God, those are not my responses naturally. Like,
Mm-mm.
if you put a finger on me, it's not going to end well for you. And the same way for like, she could have very much so in her right put her mother-in-law in her place several times. And she just chose to not do that. And it was the self-control in her and the faith in her that I admired the most.
Mm-hmm.
I think as women, and if we're working towards, Mother's Day and just thinking back to like wanting to be the best version of me that I could be, like I wish I could have restraint when it was appropriate. And I wish that I could have faith and hold on to it as she did.
She would not move from it. And she felt like she was so attached to it, she felt like she would fail if she wasn't going to have the lineage and keep that family going. And she was running out of options because the guys kept dying.
And this was years. It was years before like she came up with a plan and thought, okay, this is my plan B if things aren't moving. She had to wait years to like even execute her plan B. When she executed her plan B, she was putting everything at risk and had to wait like another month or however many months before she could even start to see some of the pieces move into motion. And even then it wasn't like her position, her life wasn't guaranteed. She was constantly it was just, I'm like, you have nothing to complain about, JoJo.
Well, have you ever like hung on to something despite everything that's happening around you?
Not unshakably, no.
Really? Oh,
Not
yes, you have.
no, I cannot. I go through bouts of like, I can do this. No, I can't. I can do this. No, I can't. That woman in her self-talk, not once
No?
did she say, maybe I messed up. Like,
Mhm.
or did she? I just thought to myself, like, her actions, not once did she ever like regret doing absolutely anything. My faith has grown. I feel like I have pretty strong, and I don't even want to say that out loud because then God's going to be like, really? But it's just, I was just so in awe of like, it's unshakable for her. And you know nothing. You know the bare minimum
Mhm.
about God. It was so impressive to me.
Mhm.
So
Awesome.
impressive.
So would you use that kind of like, is that an inspiration, that story an inspiration to reflect on, to hang on to something?
100%. I think we have so many stories of like, what would you say is like a story of faith? And now I'm like,
Tamar.
Tamar, Tamar. Forget David, forget Joseph, Tamar. Okay, is insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
It is. It is. I love the tenacity that she had. And that's what I hope to always hold on to when I go through faith ventures,
Yeah.
through life situations, whatever it is. I want that tenacity to say that is never, it has to be true because that's what God says.
Yeah.
To be that hooked in that you just don't have any waver to it.
Yeah. And the next girl, I don't know why I consider Rahab an underdog.
Hmm.
Like Rahab is an underdog to me. And I was even discussing it with someone, and they were just like, "Oh, poor Rahab. Like, it must have sucked to have been a prostitute." And I was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa!
Yeah.
Rahab had made it. Like, in
Mm-hmm.
her mind, she accomplished what she wanted to accomplish, which
Mm-hmm.
was to be someone of authority, to have a title, to be important, to, provide for herself financially
And her family.
and her
Mm-hmm.
family. But she was very much empty."
Very well. Now she knew the story though. Like
Yes.
she had heard all of the stories about what God had
Same
done.
thing. Same thing. She
Same thing.
heard of God.
And she hung on to that. And she was living in a town, it was Jericho. She was living in a city that praised and other gods, just all kind out of clay and everything. And
Yeah.
she clearly identified they those clay idols, those talismans, they don't do anything for you. Nothing.
Yeah.
She clearly identified that and said, that one that we heard that parted the Red Sea, that did all of the conquering of all of the foes around us, that's the living God. And she would not let go of that.
Yeah.
Loved that about her.
I I don't know, she's just such like, I saw a hustler. Now mind you, I in no way, shape, or form think that prostitution is good. I'm not saying that. I'm saying the fact that this woman was able to accomplish what she did for herself, impressive. Um, but what I caught my attention and was so interesting is she was in pursuit of something her entire life. And the moment that she encountered God, she was willing to give it all up just to be accepted by
Everything.
him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All she wanted to do was be a part of
His family.
his family.
Yeah. And she gave up her family.
She sure did.
She gave up her family. And she was even tested every step of the way, which I loved. Can you pass a test? Can you believe for something and something comes up that tests you on that belief? Can you pass that test to go to the next one?
Right.
She hit so many tests that were amazing to see her, again, tenacity to walk through all of that. She was just unshakable.
Yeah.
That's a good word.
No, their faith, both of these women's faith is unshakable. And I think because I'm someone who was raised in the gospel, raised in church my entire life, I grew up hearing about the Bible, I grew up seeing God. It's easy for me to have unshakable faith, right?
Mhm.
Or so we say. But unfortunately, it pointed out to me how numb you become
So true.
to seeing how good God is and how faithful God is and how entitled we get as his children to just expect these things. And there are other people who are like holding on to the last bit of whatever
Mhm.
just to see God move in their, and it's just like, it was humbling, really. It was like, Jovi, can you say that that is you?
Mm,
And I was like, no,
mm,
no, I can't.
mm.
Cause that to me is just like, yeah, okay. That's God. Yeah, we know. Just
Wow.
like the people of
Yeah.
Israel.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know who he is. We know that he parted the Red Sea. He brings us water and food every single day. He's done it for 40 years.
Yeah. Well, and we also live in a place that I can go right now and go to the grocery store and buy bread and milk. I don't drink milk, but I can go buy whatever I want.
Right.
They didn't have that. They had to work for absolutely everything they did. So, yeah. And the other part of her that I loved was the fact that she wouldn't have any of these idols in her house. And then during the story, you learned that her house was saved because of her connection with the spies that were coming to fight Jericho. But what was cool was when her family came in, she had so much heartfelt belief that not to have that indoctrination of other gods to be in her house. She got rid of them all. And I always ask myself, have I accepted something that, because in today's day with the social media, with everything that happens, and all of the lifestyles that we have I just numbly, I mean, that's a good way to put it. Have I accepted something that is not really right?
Yeah.
Have I done that?
And we can say, well, no, I don't have Buddha, or I don't have a ceramic figure or a gold god sitting on my countertop somewhere. But I was inspired to, start writing about all of these women And I thought to myself, okay, so we may not have a ceramic or like a physical God, but what are the gods of today's age?
Right. TV,
Money,
money.
drugs,
Mhm.
sex,
Mhm.
alcohol,
Mhm.
pride. There are just so many things that are considered gods. Whatever you devote your time to, whatever consumes your life is a god in your life. And
If you're not able to give it up.
yeah, if you're not able, and we're not talking about a healthy work-life balance, right? We're not talking about you setting time for your family. However, if that supersedes your time with God, that is a god to you.
Mhm.
And you have to be careful. So it really did have me look internally and just be like, okay, what other gods are taking up your time?
Mhm. Mhm.
Vanity. Sometimes we're so into ourselves that like self-care, getting your hair done, getting your nails done, getting all that, like we don't even have time for anything else.
Mhm.
And it did have me do an internal look of like, okay, what am I giving place to that belongs to God?
Yes.
So that was a good look for her. What about Bathsheba? Oh my God.
Maybe you should start this one. She's the one that has a lot of questions about Bathsheba.
I
That's
don't
a
have
tough one.
a
It
lot of
is a very
questions. I have a lot of opinions.
opinions. There. Okay, that's better.
Okay, so growing up, what did you hear about Bathsheba?
Well, growing up, I heard that David, King David, looked upon her and had her.
Right. That was it.
That's yeah,
That was it. That's who
for the most
Bathsheba,
for the
and
most part.
it's unfortunate because in the story it says that her mom like curses her with like, this is what you're going to be known for.
Mhm.
And it's true. That is what she's known for. She is known for being the woman who David killed her husband to keep her.
Mhm.
And the story put such a perspective not only on her, but it also put a perspective on David. I don't think I had ever seen David as a lustful, sinful man before.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
I
Yeah.
like I knew that he was human. I knew that he was a man. But when you think about God saying that he's someone after God's own heart, you don't think of a murderer and an
Oh gosh, yeah.
idolater and a sinful, lustful, hateful man.
Yes. Oh, wow. That was eye-opening for you
I
then.
did not
Oh my
ever
goodness.
see
Yeah.
him that way.
Yeah.
And then her, I just didn't give her any more thought outside of like, you had a choice in this. Like, you didn't have to go.
Mhm.
But obviously, when you put the perspective into things, he is the king. He is a man. He is calling for her. Could she have lost her life? Yes. I didn't realize that she had a son prior to having Solomon.
Mhm.
I did not know that.
Okay.
And so myself having experienced loss, that moment, like I hated her up until that moment. And then my gut was like, gut checked. And
Mhm.
I was like, oh my God, yes, I would be fearful
Mhm.
having another child. And like, what if something goes wrong again? And
Mhm.
the loss that she experienced over and over and over again, it was an infuriating story.
Mm.
Honestly, I would start with her because I was like, I texted Karen and I was like, I don't even know what to feel. I don't know what to feel. I don't know what to think. But she was someone who, unlike our first two characters, did grow up knowing God.
Mhm.
She was raised in his ways. She knew the Bible. So regardless of being Israelite, Canaanite, Ammonite, whatever it is, you can identify with the fact that someone is Christian or non-Christian, right? We are here for the seekers, the skeptics, and the worn out believers. So if you're someone who's never been raised in church, then maybe you identify with Rahab's story or with Tamar's story and having that curiosity, having that hunger for God, wanting to like understand and know more. Their stories are beautiful because you understand that God sees you in that and
Mhm.
he's welcoming you as well. Um, if you are that worn out believer, I feel like Bathsheba's story is a really good
It's a
story
good
for you.
story.
And
It's
I identify myself with a worn out believer. I've been there a couple of times, and it's hard when you feel like your faith is kind of up in the air or lost, or like you're just kind of like in the limbo of sense. I feel like Bathsheba's story was probably triggering because of that. I was like,
Mhm.
wait a second, girl, you know better.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know better. What are you doing? But the human side of her story and understanding the loss that she was going through, the fact that she did end up falling in love with her husband who was killed. It was all like it was just a lot. What about
It was
you?
a lot. Yeah, I didn't connect as well with Bathsheba just because of her behavior. I was the same way. I'm like, what are you doing?
Right.
What are you doing? Wait a minute. What? Wait. But yeah, you could also connect with the human side too. But I think the beautiful part is the restoration. If there is, no matter what somebody does or screws up in, there is restoration with God. You have to deal with whatever the consequences of whatever you do.
That
That's
was
just,
my favorite line
yeah,
in her book
yeah.
when she was talking to her sons. And he
You
was
have
like,
to,
well, surely God's going to have mercy over you. And she says, God will have mercy, but you have to face the
you have to
consequences.
face the consequences.
And I was like,
Yeah,
because how many times do we misinterpret
yeah.
that because God's going to have mercy, all of a sudden he's going to clean up our mess?
He restores. So some people think that restoration is fixing everything and everything's back to brand new. Restoration is restoring your heart back to him, restoring so that you can live and move forward again. However, a lot of times we do have to suffer the consequences of what we done.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've done that with my friendships.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I have had friendships that I've made mistakes in and I've lost them. I'm not going to get those friendships back. It pains me. It's hard for me to talk about because I don't have like millions of friends. I just have a select friends. And over the course of time, actions of my own cause them to no longer be my friends.
Mm.
But I'm restored. My heart is restored. But my consequence is I lost the friendship.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, sometimes we just have to live with what we've done, but that doesn't mean you can't be restored. So,
Yeah, her redemption was probably one of my favorite. And it was just so apparent. It was so instant. And just seeing her stages of kind of like grieving too. Like she went from
mhm,
being, like understanding that she had did wrong, made wrong. She was feeling bad for herself. And then she was kind of like sitting in that. And then she went into this moment of like surrender
mhm.
and just being like, okay, God, I did what I did. It is what it is. You have chosen to have mercy on me. I thank you for that. Just see me through the rest.
Mhm.
And she just kind of lived a life of surrender from then on, like knowing that she was in total and absolute surrender, not in control of absolutely anything.
Mhm.
And I thought that was beautiful. And that's how she raised her children too, which was
Yep.
amazing.
Yeah.
Solomon, whole nother story. He was upsetting me. I'm like, if you only know that this man grows up to be terrible, but whatever. I'm talking about the men. We're talking about the women. Her story was beautiful. The fact that she raised some God-fearing sons and she tried to stay as humble as possible. And just some of the things that she was doing when she was in David's kingdom, like in the house with the other wives, I think speaks to some of the ways that women can kind of behave today.
Yeah.
Especially when you're trying to date someone. Um, how do I want to say this? Like the other women in the house were very attention seeking. They had an agenda that they were going after. It was very self-centered, very self-focused. And she kind of like stopped and thought for a second, okay, they're acting crazy. I cannot be identified with them, right? I have to look different. I am different. I am someone who fears God. And her behavior showed that
Mhm.
in how she would show up calm. She wouldn't, she wasn't irrational. She wouldn't be reactive. And I think that was something that I had to look towards myself too. In a room full of women, are you able to say, I'm different?
In a room full with anyone, can you say that you are different?
Yep.
Because it's not just the women. In this case, it was the women, but I mean, there's guys out there too that may not make you feel the best. There's women out there that may not make you feel the best. Can you be the calmest one in the room, and can you live through that, be the best representative of yourself without engaging in the tit for tat,
Yeah.
engaging in that terrible conversation or, well, you know, just hurting other people like they were hurting her.
Yeah.
So,
And so we've talked about these three women. We're going to talk about two more. I wanted to keep them separate because they're so different. And I think that I will. I don't want to make two of them sound better than the others, but they were just different. They lived their lives differently. As someone who has made many mistakes, have been divorced, remarried, has experienced loss with my miscarriage, I really identified with how unperfect these women were. I identified with some of the brokenness that was in there. What are some of the things that you identified with in these women?
Gosh, the tenacity for Tamar. I mean, I just keep coming back to that. Like, I want to have that tenacity.
And what does that mean for you? Like, if someone didn't understand what the word tenacity is, Karen uses big words. That's okay.
That's not a big word.
It's a big word.
No,
It's a big word. So, but let's say that someone doesn't know what tenacity is. What is that? Like, what are you
Not
talking
letting
about?
go of something. If you know something's in your heart, that no matter time and things, situations that come about it, you don't let go of it. For example, like when I was moving from one job to another and it took 11 years to do it.
Yeah.
The tenacity to do that. I'm not trying to identify and say I had the tenacity. It's encouraging to say, keep doing that. If you have something in your heart that is important, don't let it go.
Yeah.
Just don't let it go.
And there's a line in the summary that I have down there, and Karen and I had to talk about it off camera. So I feel like it warrants like talking about it on camera. One of the lines that's in the summary is, that this episode kind of talks about the fact that Jesus didn't just come for the broken people, that he came from the broken people. And Karen was like, what do you mean?
Yep.
What do you mean? And I just think it's interesting that we serving an intentional God, he chose to come from these three very broken women. Like, why didn't God just choose three? Why didn't God just choose three perfect people, like, as part of his lineage? And I think that's important for us to point out and for you to see, because sometimes, like we started the podcast saying, we think that our past is too ugly, our actions are too terrible, that our stories aren't perfect enough, and that we can't come to God with those things, or that's what, leaves us out. And like I said, we're here for the seekers, the skeptics, and the worn out believers. And I think he was too, which is why he chose to come from these three very imperfect, broken women. But then he doesn't leave you there. And I think that's the biggest thing in this story, is that even though he chose these three women and that was the state that they were in, they did not stay way.
There. Yeah. And he's there for everyone. Like, every person is imperfect until they meet him.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's there for everyone.
Yeah.
To expect to want to be perfect, or to think that you have to be perfect before you meet him, oh my gosh, please don't think that at all, because he loves you as you are right now. No exceptions.
I think one of the messages that I speak to the most, whether it's here or on social media, is how I was personally tired of just the perfect Christian, the perfect faith, the perfect person who never struggled with anything, was always strong. That's just not real life. It just is. It hasn't been real life for me, at least. That hasn't been my experience in life. I've had to wrestle with my faith. I've had to dig deep sometimes and just be like, okie dokie, my feelings are saying this. The world is saying that. But this is what I believe in. This is what I know to be true. And I've seen God show up and prove himself time and time again. And just seeing it in these stories was just so refreshing. It was very, very refreshing, because it's not the ideal story. It's not the David that was a shepherd boy who got called into greatness. Yes, did he experience difficulties? But it was, a woman who had no choice. Outside of what the world was telling her to do, which was to marry and have children. And she was confronted with all of these challenges over and over and over again. And even though she had many options, honestly, many options, the one thing that all of these women chose to do was to trust God, to keep praying, to keep believing, and to keep going.
Yeah. And a lot of times we'll use our personal stories to let you know and be very unfiltered. But in this episode, we really encourage you, read about these guys. They have great examples. They're real life people.
Yep.
And we can learn from them, just like we can learn from each other. So we have a little bit of a mix of our stories in it, but man, it would be worth it. And you said you're going to post it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll put the link in for, or what the books are, so that you can grab hold of them. Fantastic books. They're easy reads too.
They are. They
They're
really
super
are.
easy reads. And when I was in Rahab, I don't know if this happened to you, but when all of the excitement was happening, I was reading faster. Like I couldn't put it down. I kept reading faster. I'm like, okay, now we can slow down.
It was in Tamar. I'm like, please tell me this girl slapped somebody at some point during this book. At some point, please. Please.
It grabs your attention. It really does.
They're very, very good. And listen, guys, this is a 2-part series. We are going to talk about Ruth and Mary in a different episode. We're going to have a little break in between, just because we're talking about these women's story. We also have another story we want to share with you in between this one. More to come on that later. We will be having a special guest, our second special guest, coming up during the series, where we want to share more about unlikely women.
Oh, unlikely women
with unshakable faith.
Yeah.
And I am personally really excited for this. So just get ready for what's to come on the podcast. If you have any thoughts, if you've read the series or if you've read their stories and have some thoughts, please comment down below. We want to get a conversation going, because trust me, I was shook. I was genuinely shook. You can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Visit our website, www.faithunfilteredlife.com. Sign up for the newsletter. We have a monthly newsletter that goes out sharing what all the episodes are. And then we're also trying to build an online community to potentially start some things, and we don't want you to miss out. So we'll see you guys next time.
See ya.